Picture this. You have spent months planning the European trip of a lifetime. The flights are booked, the hotels confirmed, the itinerary mapped out across 3 countries. You step off the plane in Paris, exhausted but excited, and walk straight to the border officer with your US passport in hand. He scans it, looks at his screen, then back at you. And then he says the words no traveler ever wants to hear. I am sorry, you cannot enter. In 2026, this is not a worst-case scenario. It is happening to thousands of Americans who did not read the fine print. Europe just rewrote its entry rules from the ground up. Biometric scanners at every gate. Mandatory online authorizations you have to apply for before takeoff. Digital tracking systems that never forget a face. Border officers who now see your entire travel history on a screen before you even open your mouth. The truth is, most American travelers still think a US passport gets you waved through Europe. Those days are over. 7. Major rules just took effect or are about to, and any one of them can get you turned around at the border, sent back across the Atlantic, and banned from returning for years. These are the 7 new European travel rules that will deny Americans entry in 2026. Miss them, and your trip ends before it starts. Rule 1. The biometric border that never forgets. On April 10, 2026, Europe officially flipped the switch on something called the Entry-Exit System, EES. It changes everything about crossing into the Schengen area. For decades, entering Europe meant the same routine. Show your passport, get a stamp, walk through. That stamp was the only record of your visit, and if a border officer was tired or distracted, sometimes you did not even get one. Tracking was loose, enforcement was casual, and the whole system ran on paper and goodwill. That system is dead. Now, every American crossing into one of 29 Schengen countries gets fingerprinted, photographed, and digitally logged. Your facial scan, your fingerprints, your passport details, your entry date, your exit date, all of it goes into a centralized European database. The next time you fly into Madrid, Rome, or Amsterdam, the system already knows you. It knows when you arrived last time. It knows when you left. It knows if you stayed too long. Here's what nobody warned American travelers about. The first time you enroll, that biometric registration takes time. We're talking about biometric delays of 30 minutes or more at peak hours, and that's at airports where the system actually works. At Lisbon Airport in late 2025, the gates malfunctioned so badly that Portugal had to suspend EES entirely and bring in extra officers from the National Republican Guard just to manage the lines. France's automated gates still could not process American or British passports as of March. Spain and Switzerland have been wildly inconsistent. So here is the trap. You assume you will breeze through customs in 20 minutes like always. You book a tight connecting flight to Barcelona or Athens. You land at Charles de Gaulle, hit the EES line, and watch your connection take off without you while a sensor tries to read your fingerprint for the 4th time. These are real scenes of missed connections and long lines. The fix is simple, but most travelers miss it. If you are flying to Europe in 2026, build in at least 2 hours extra for your first EES enrollment. Use the new Travel to Europe app if it is available at your departure point. It lets you pre-register your passport and facial image up to 72 hours before arrival, which can shave significant time off the process. Right now, the app only works at certain Swedish border points, but more countries are rolling it out. The era of casual European border crossings is officially over. From now on, every entry is recorded, every exit is verified, and the database never forgets. Rule 2. The authorization you can't board without. Coming in the last quarter of 2026, Europe is launching ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System. If you are a United States citizen who plans to fly to Europe in late 2026 or beyond, this rule can deny you before you even reach the airport. Here is how it works. ETIAS is not a visa. It is a pre-travel authorization. similar to the EST system the United States already requires for some visitors. You apply online, pay a small fee of around 7 to 20 euros, answer some basic questions about your background, and usually get approval within minutes. Sounds simple, right? It is, until you forget to do it. Once ETIAS is fully active, United States citizens cannot board a flight to any Schengen country without a valid ETIAS approval. The airline will check it before you are even allowed onto the plane. No ETIAS, no boarding pass. End of trip. There is a 6-month transitional period after launch where border officers may have discretion to let people through without ETIAS. But most airlines will not take that risk. They face huge fines for transporting passengers without proper authorization. So even during the grace period, expect to be denied at check-in if you did not apply. And here's where the system gets vicious. ETIAS is tied directly to your passport. If you renew your passport between trips, your old ETIAS becomes invalid, even if you paid the fee just last year and got approved for 3 years. A new passport means a new ETIAS application. Most travelers will not think about this until they are already at the airport with luggage checked. The fee itself sounds small, 20 euros, about $22. But the EU has confirmed scam websites are already popping up that mimic the official portal, charging $50, $80, even $200 for the same service. They are banking on travelers in a panic, searching at the last minute and clicking the first result. Always use the official EU website. The fake ones are designed to look almost identical. Travelers under 18 and over 70 do not pay the fee, but they still have to apply. There are no exceptions. Once approved, your ETIAS is valid for 3 years, or until your passport expires, whichever comes first. The exact launch date has not been confirmed yet. The EU promised at least several months of warning. If you are planning a European trip for late 2026 or 2027, mark this rule down now. Because showing up at the gate without ETIAS means watching your flight leave without you. Rule 3. The trap that catches more Americans than any other rule in this video. This is the 90 in 180-day rule. If you traveled to Europe before 2026, you may have heard of this. It says American passport holders can stay in the Schengen area for a maximum of 90 days within any rolling 180-day period. Stay longer and you have overstayed. For years, this rule was loosely enforced. Border officers were busy. Passport stamps were faded or missing. Some travelers stretched their stays. Some flew home through different airports to avoid scrutiny. Some genuinely thought leaving for a weekend reset the clock. None of that works anymore. With EES, the entry-exit system, now live, every entry and exit is digital. The moment a border officer scans your passport, they see exactly how many days you have spent in Schengen over the past 180 days. The math is done for them. You cannot argue. You cannot claim confusion. The screen tells them, and it tells them in seconds. Here's what trips up Americans the most. The 180-day window is rolling, not calendar-based. People assume they can spend 90 days in Europe from January through March, fly home for a week, and come back for another 90 days starting in April. They cannot. The window resets day by day, not at the end of any calendar period. Another mistake. Travelers think each country has its own 90-day allowance. They do not. The 90 days apply to the entire Schengen zone, all 29 countries combined. Spend 30 days in France and you have 60 days left for the rest of Europe, not 60 days per country. And the consequences for getting it wrong are brutal in 2026. Overstays now trigger automatic fines, sometimes hundreds of euros. Multi-year entry bans can range from 1 to 5 years depending on the country and severity. Deportation happens in serious cases. Every overstay is now permanently logged in the EES system, which means your next attempt to enter Europe, even years later, will be flagged at the border. The fix is straightforward. Use a Schengen calculator before you travel. The European Commission provides one for free on its official website. Plug in every entry and exit date for the past 180 days, and it tells you exactly how many days you have remaining. Do the math at home, not in the passport queue, because in 2026, the system already knows. The only question is whether you do. Rule 4, the rule that quietly turned away thousands of Americans last year and almost nobody saw coming. The passport validity trap. Most American travelers have a vague sense that their passport needs to be valid to travel. As long as it is not expired on the day you fly, you are fine, right? Wrong. Wildly, expensively wrong. The Schengen area enforces two specific passport rules, and both can deny you entry on the spot. First rule, your passport must be valid for at least 3 months beyond your planned departure date from Europe. Not 3 months from your arrival, 3 months from when you plan to leave. So if you are flying home on June 15th, your passport has to stay valid until at least September 15th. Cut it close, and the officer at the counter has full authority to send you back. Many Americans confuse this with the 6-month rule that applies in some countries outside Europe. Schengen's official requirement is 3 months, but here is the smart move. Treat it as 6 months anyway. That extra cushion has saved countless travelers from last-minute panic at the gate. Second rule, and this is the one that catches almost everyone. Your passport must have been issued within the last 10 years. Read that again. Issued within the last 10 years. That is not the same as expiration. Some American passports were issued more than 10 years ago, but still have remaining validity because of the way certain renewals work. If your passport was issued more than a decade before your travel date, even if it does not technically expire for another year, Schengen border officers can refuse you entry. The European Union considers passports older than 10 years from issuance unreliable for biometric verification. This rule has been quietly enforced for years, but with the Biometric Entry and Exit System, ETIAS, going fully live in 2026, the systems now flag old passports automatically. The screen does not just show whether your passport is expired, it shows the issue date. If that date is more than 10 years before your travel date, the officer has every reason to send you home. Here is the scary part. Many American travelers do not even know what date their passport was issued. They just look at the expiration date and assume they are fine. They are not. Before any European trip in 2026, open your passport and check both dates. If your passport is even close to 10 years old, renew it before you fly. Renewal takes about 6 to 8 weeks through standard processing and longer during peak season. The cost of a new passport is a fraction of the cost of being denied boarding and losing your entire vacation. Rule 5. The question that ends trips before they start. Show me your money. Most Americans do not realize this, but every Schengen country has a minimum daily amount that visitors are technically required to demonstrate they can spend during their stay. And in 2026, with stricter border enforcement across the board, officers are asking about it more often than they have in years. The amounts vary by country, and they are not trivial. Spain requires roughly 114 euros per day, or about $125. Switzerland sets the bar around 100 euros per day. Portugal asks for 40 euros per day plus a flat 75 euros fixed amount per entry. Stay for 2 weeks in Spain, and the math says you need to prove you can access roughly 1,600 euros in funds. France, Germany, Italy all have their own requirements. The point is not that border officers expect you to be carrying that cash. They do not. What they want is evidence that you can financially support yourself without becoming a burden on the country, or worse, working illegally to make ends meet. Acceptable proof includes recent bank statements, credit cards with available credit, prepaid hotel reservations, or even cash if you really want to flash it. The most reliable option is a bank statement from the last 30 to 60 days, showing your name, account balance, and regular activity. Print it out. Do not rely on being able to log into your bank app at the border, because some airports have terrible cell service in the customs area, and you do not want to be fumbling with a frozen phone while an officer waits. Here is where this rule can quietly destroy a trip. If you arrive looking budget-conscious, traveling with a backpack, staying in hostels, with no return ticket and a vague itinerary, an officer's antenna goes up. Because that profile fits someone who might overstay or work illegally to fund travel, the officer will ask for proof of funds. A confident traveler with a clean answer breezes through. A nervous traveler who says, I have credit cards somewhere, suddenly finds themselves in secondary screening, explaining the entire trip in detail. The fix is simple. Always travel with proof of funds you can show in 30 seconds. A printed bank statement, a clear photo on your phone, prepaid hotel confirmations. Know your rough budget for the trip, not as a guess, but as a number you can state confidently when asked. In 2026, Europe is not asking you to be rich. It is asking you to be prepared. If border rules and travel traps like this keep tripping you up, hit subscribe. We break down the stuff airlines, embassies, and tourism boards quietly leave out of the brochures. Rule 6, the rule most Americans never even hear about until they are already at the airport. The UK ETA. Here is the situation. The United Kingdom is no longer part of the European Union, which means it is also not part of Schengen, ETIAS, or any of the other EU travel systems we have been talking about. Britain runs its own pre-travel authorization, called the Electronic Travel Authorization, ETA. And as of February 25, 2026, it became fully mandatory for American travelers. That date matters. Before February 25, 2026, there was a grace period where Americans could enter the United Kingdom without an ETA in some cases. Those days are over. Right now, today, every American flying to London, Edinburgh, Manchester, or any other United Kingdom destination has to apply for an ETA before boarding. No application equals no boarding. The fee is small, around £16, and applications usually process within minutes. You apply through an official United Kingdom government app or website, provide your passport details and a photo, and most approvals come back fast. The ETA is valid for 2 years and allows multiple visits, up to 6 months at a time. Here is where this rule trips up Americans planning European trips. A lot of travelers route their flights through London because Heathrow has cheap connections to the rest of Europe. They book a flight that lands in London, then connects to Paris, Rome, or Madrid a few hours later. They assume the layover does not count because they are not actually visiting the UK. It does count. Even a 2-hour layover at Heathrow or Gatwick now requires a UK ETA. If you do not have one, you can be denied boarding in the United States. You can be turned around in London. Your entire European trip falls apart because you skipped a step that costs less than a pizza. And it gets worse. The UK ETA is completely separate from ETIAS. Once Europe's ETIAS launches later in 2026, an American visiting both Britain and France will need both authorizations. UK ETA for Britain, ETIAS for the Schengen area. 2 applications, 2 fees, 2 systems. The fix is to plan ahead. If your trip touches the UK in any way, even a layover, get the UK ETA at least a week before you fly. Apply only through the official UK government channels. Scam sites are charging 2 to 5 times the real fee for the exact same authorization. 2 paperwork errors away from a denied trip. That is the new reality of crossing the Atlantic in 2026. Rule 7. The most subtle trap of all. The remote work question. This one rarely makes the headlines, but it is quietly causing more denials than almost any rule in this video. The reason is simple. The way Americans think about work in 2026 does not match the way Europe defines it. Picture this. You are a software developer flying to Lisbon for a 6-week trip. You will work remotely from cafes in the morning, explore the city in the afternoon, and take some weekends to visit Madrid and Seville. Sounds reasonable, right? Millions of Americans do this every year. Digital nomads, remote workers, anyone with a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, Then you reach the border. The officer asks the standard question. What is the purpose of your visit? You answer honestly. Tourism, but I will also be working remotely for my American job. That sentence just ended your trip. Here is what most Americans do not understand. Under European law, working remotely for an employer, even an American employer, while physically present in a Schengen country counts as work. Not tourism, not leisure, work. Tourist entry does not permit work of any kind, regardless of who is paying you or where they are based. To Americans, remote work feels like a non-event. You are sitting at a cafe with a laptop. You are not taking a job from a local. You are spending money in the country, not earning it from one. To European border officers, none of that matters. The act of generating income while inside their borders is regulated work, and tourist status does not allow it. The penalty for getting flagged on this question can be severe. Immediate refusal of entry is possible. You can also get a black mark on your EES record that follows you for years. Some Americans have been blacklisted for multiple years after a single honest answer at the border. The harsh truth is that hundreds of thousands of Americans technically violate this rule every year by checking work emails on vacation. Most never get caught because they do not volunteer the information. The trap is offering up that you are working remotely because you think it is harmless small talk. If you are truly a tourist, be a tourist. Vacation, sightsee, disconnect. If you are genuinely planning to work remotely from Europe for an extended period, do not travel on a tourist stamp. Apply for one of the new digital nomad visas that countries like Portugal, Spain, Croatia, and Hungary now offer. They are designed exactly for this situation. But never tell a border officer you will be working remotely on a tourist entry. In 2026, that one sentence is the fastest way to get sent home. So now you know 7 new European travel rules that took effect or are about to, and any one of them can deny an American at the border in 2026. The biometric wall, the ETIAS authorization, the digital 90-day trap, the passport issue date rule, proof of funds, the UK ETA, the remote work question, each one harmless on its own, devastating if you miss it. Europe isn't shutting Americans out, but it is rewriting the rules of entry, and the casual era of show up and they let you in is officially over. Travelers who prepare get to walk through. Travelers who assume get sent home. Before your next European trip, check your passport's issue date. Save your proof of funds to your phone. Apply for any authorizations weeks in advance. Know the 90-day math cold, and never volunteer information at the border that wasn't asked for.